Alright, so this video is just kind of a continuation of the last video. I wanted to give you guys an example of what I was talking about visually as opposed to just in code. So I'm going to pull this up here. I feel like sometimes it's easy to get lost in the code, and you're looking at these divs and IDs and all the stuff that I've written here, and it's hard to make sense of these things. So I have a visual representation of what each of these IDs and divs are, and I'm going to show these to you here in a second. And hopefully it kind of helps answer some of your questions that you might have right now as to how I'm organizing this and why I'm organizing this the way I am. Okay, so these are coming directly from the layout that I created, and this can be coming from a layout that you draw on paper or one that you have in your head. Happens to be one that I created in Photoshop, right? So let's go look at my image. And what I've done here is I've broken these up into various images for you to look at, and I've highlighted different areas here. So this is highlighted in green, right? And I've given it a title here of div ID equals header, which is what I named it in my code, right? So this would equal. Let's see if my mouse goes back to my code here. This is going to equal what I had in the code. And as you can see, here is my div ID equals header. Okay. And I have an image that I'm calling out, which is my logo. Okay. And then the div closes, and that's exactly what we see here. Whoops, wrong page. Here we go. So we have my header, and there's my logo over on the left, right here. And then there's this background image, and you don't see this in the HTML because that background image I'm going to create in CSS. Okay, so it's not actually going to be in my markup, it's going to be in my styles. Alright, so let's get out of this real quick. And we'll move on to the next one. So the next one I have here is my nav. Right, so there's my div ID equals nav, and it's a block level element, just like the last one was. The div is a block level element, so it takes up as much room on screen as it's available. Okay, so it's going to cut it all the way across. Okay. And the next one here is my main content. Okay. And it's this block right here. And it contains my headers and my paragraphs and my subheaders and all that good stuff. So if I scroll down my code here, here's my main content, although I named it content main, so I'm going to change this real quick. Main content, and it contains my H1s and my P paragraphs and all that good stuff. So that's another block, right? So hopefully this is starting to make a little bit more sense. And then after that comes my sidebar with the 3 images, right? And they're already in there in the code. So if I go back to my folder here, we'll check out the sidebar. And there it is. Okay, I read it vertically just because it was easier to read. So div ID equals sidebar is what I just showed you in the code. Okay. So my website has 4 different sections. Your website may need more. In most cases, you will. You also add a footer, or divs inside of divs in the maybe where your paragraphs are, that kind of thing. But it'll be up to you. Okay. I just wanted you guys to use the IDs and classes the way they were meant to be used. But really, it's going to be up to you to what your needs are for your website. And then the last thing I want to talk about was the order of the things that I have here. So my divs are written in a specific order here. And you might be wondering, well, how did I decide what order to write these in? Well, they're written in the order that I saw made most sense to me. There's something called normal flow, which we'll talk about next week more in depth when we talk about positioning. Next week we'll get into how to position all these different divs where we want them to go. But just a quick overview, you probably want to write things in the order of how you would read a book, is how I would best put it. So basically left to right, up and down. So my sidebar is to the right of my main content, so it comes after it here. You could write it before, you just have to make a tweak to your CSS. So we'll talk about all that positioning goodness next week. For now, we'll end with this, and we'll get into the CSS box model. We need to understand that first.